Welcome back to an epic workout. We're going to wake up anticipation by transforming fantasy and stepping into emanation. We'll look at the specific hexagram here. We've got yang, yang, yin. So we're going to go forward, up, and narrow. That's channel. It's a sense of purposeful contribution. And that's where we start in this sense of purposeful contribution. And then we go yin, yin, yang, which is to say back, down, and wide. That is cradle, which is to say it's self-regard. So we have the embodied story of from purposeful contribution into a sense of self-regard. We're going to walk through that in just a minute. I also want to bring in today, I know I don't normally do this, but here's the gate 41 through the human design perspective. And I just love these words. The limitation of resources that maximizes the development of potential. Now I'll show you that's very channel and gateway. Channeling is reducing or limiting the resources or limiting our focusing, and then that maximizes a sense of self-regard. We're going from narrow to wide. That's really cool. I'll show you. And then fantasizing and recognizing the feeling of value begins at the next cycle or begins the next cycle. Just something about this recognizing the feeling of value that begins the next cycle. And that is right there in the embodiment. So let's do this. I'm Alex Iglesias, creator of Being Epic, and my intent with this video in this practice is for you to get a very deeply embodied sense of these themes. I don't want you to just understand it. There's plenty to read from Gene Keys and Human Design, but here's an opportunity that I know that I need to slow things down in a verifiable, embodied way. And there's something very, very powerful and interesting about going directly to the lines, the dimensions of the hexagram, so that we can start to feel it, find it ourselves, and also find our pathways through it. So let's start with the 41st here, the 41st hexagram of forward, up, and narrow, which brings us into the state, or invites us into coherence with the state of purposeful contribution. It's in the world, it's active, there's a focus and a specificity to it. If you're at dinner with a friend or a loved one or your family and they say, hey, you pass the salt, right? There's a specific ask and therefore a specific contribution. Imagine being at Thanksgiving dinner and they say, hey, pass me something I want. How do you do that? Pass me a glass of water. I can do that. So specificity and focus, narrowness, really makes a difference. If you have fantasies, I'm going to be a contribution in the world. How is that helping anybody? What does that mean? Now, somehow that has to get focused into, I'm going to be a contribution by making a video of each of the hexagrams every 6 days. That's something that's specific. People can understand what that is or isn't. But whatever you're doing, we start right now, not in fantasy, but in a sense of focus. From here, where do we go? Well, we go down, back, and wide to cradle. Cradle by itself in UZAZU is a place of self-regard. Hey, how you doing? Well, I'm caring for myself today. Not doing anything, just valuing that I'm alive. I'm appreciating what I have. Hey, so that's what cradle allows us to step into. So what's the embodied story then of going from that purposeful contribution to a place of self-regard? Can you do that with your consciousness right now and feel the shift? I'm doing something specific. And now I'm valuing what I have and what I am. Doing something specific, not a fantasy. And valuing the results, valuing where I am now. That might be challenging because if you look around your house, your home, your life, there's a certain, I love this idea, but I hate it too, that everything you see is what you've chosen. that everything that's around you is the life you've created. There's a certain radical responsibility in that concept. And it's a partial truth, it's not the whole story. But if you come in the cradle, the invitation is that everything in your life, your home, your space, you realize, I value this for one reason or another. All the good things, all the bad things. So imagine for a moment we could fast forward to full enlightenment and you completely just value everything in your life. The good, the bad, the distraction, the horrible. It doesn't mean it's right and you're not going to do anything about it. It just means you can value it. In other words, you're willing to look at it. Because what's the opposite of this? The opposite of this is I'm not going to look at it. It's like, screw this. No, no. It's denial. It's a certain kind of denial. Back to fantasy. So we've got focus and specific and valuing what's real without getting caught in fantasy. And if we can do that, then I think the promise is that this begins a new cycle. If you can value the fruits of your contribution, you can look around your home and go, hey, you know what? One way or another, I chose this. I bought those things. I received that from somebody and I didn't throw it out. Somehow I chose to be here. You played a part. Your contribution, do you value it? The fruits of it. And to the degree you're like, yep, I'll swallow that. I'll celebrate this. Then what's now possible? Can you now start a new project? Can you make a change? Can you do what with the next cycle? So I think there's something really, really rich here. And I've gone a lot deeper than I would normally go in these, but I hope it's been useful. Let's touch a moment on the physicality of this, the mobility and the movement of this, in case you want to transform your exercise and make your exercise more evolutionary. And what I mean by that is we're looking at this narrow forward spinal extended movement, and then we're going to a bit of a yin flexed spine, flexion in the hips with some width. So we need shoulder mobility. We need spinal flexibility. And we need, with our legs, to be able to go from forward to wide, forward to wide. So let's turn this into just pure movement exercises for the fun and of the fun of the movement, knowing that we're actually mobilizing the capacity to embody anticipation, to get out of fantasy, to create more specificity, and to ultimately attract ourselves to the next cycle. Here we go. First, the shoulders. Let's go shoulders, arms straight out in front. And let's finish that with going to full flexion. Again, you're going forward out and full flexion. So you're just taking your shoulders to a full range of through a full range of motion. Do it a few times. Second movement, we need abduction, to abduct our arms. So go wide. Start narrow, go wide. See how wide you can go. If you start going too far forward, your shoulders will actually come forward. So don't go that far. Just open up, big hug. Keep your shoulder blades down a bit in the back. Okay, good. Next, spine. Let's go extension, flexion. Now I've got 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, but we could do this feet together. Extension, flexion, extension, and flexion. Just a few times. And then add your knees. So you're going to bend your knees as you come down. That creates flexion in the knees, flexion in the hips. So you're creating flexion in multiple parts of your body and extension in multiple parts of your body. A couple more times. Good. And our last mobility / movement is to go wide. And from here, one way to play this is to just gently drop knees in and out. Let's zoom in on my feet here, because what we're doing here there's a lot of things going on. Going from edge to edge on the feet and knees wide. So we're actually mobilizing the femur in the hip socket of the pelvis. And you can see how far you might go with that. This is nice mobility for running, surprisingly, squatting and other leg exercises, because these lateral movements create the ability to go out and narrow, but they also, you're constantly doing inversion and eversion with the feet as you're walking and running. So let's do just a couple more. Make the movement as small as you need to, that you can breathe. And big enough if you want to start to feel a bit of a stretch, but not too much. The purpose is not stretch sensation, it's being able to feel stronger and more mobile. Okay, I think we're gonna leave it with that then. We've done shoulders, spine, and legs. Let's come back then to our pure hexagram embodiment, which is channel, cradle, but now you've got all the component pieces mobilized in your body. So all that's left is to start the flow of moving from trigram to trigram into hexagram. The body knows what you're doing now. The concepts are all in the back of your mind. Just move from one to the other. Find your flow and sweet spots. We'll do this together 1 minute, and then we'll wrap up the video. Make it slower and smoother. Are there any emotions that you haven't yet felt and been willing to feel on your path to truly valuing your contribution? Are there any emotions? Are there any energies that you've been denying and keeping out of your experience about the value of your contribution? Last one. And then let it all go. Recognize that the practice is complete, unless you're going to hit pause and do a little bit more. And pause, give your body a little shake. And a little bit of love through touch, a little bit of physical love, love language with yourself. And this has been a dive into the 41st hexagram. These states, these processes, these pathways are so vital to unlock our blind spots and where we get stuck. I know that there are projects you want to see completed. There's a new life you want to start. There's a new journey, a new cycle. That might be a book, that might be a career, that might be renewing something in your life. So whatever next level you're working on, whatever upgrade you're calling in, I just wish that for you. And I hope that you find some ease, some peace, some power, and a whole lot of bliss with it. I'll post a few other videos here that you can play with and practice. If you have any questions, just reach out. Send me an email at alex@alexiglesia.com or send me a message on Facebook. Let me know, what are you experiencing? And where might you still be experiencing some challenges? And maybe there's some ways I can support you. Have a great day. Thanks for being epic.